Can you name the last 5 artists that won Artist of the Year at the Grammys? Me either. Or what about the last 5 companies that were at the top of the Inc. 500 list? The last 5 winners of the Olympic gold medal in women's gymnastics? Nope. Me either. You want to know why? Because it doesn't really matter to the average person, right? Who cares? But I bet you can name your 5 favorite people that you've ever worked with. Just stop and think about them. You probably even see their faces pop up into your mind. Or how about the 5 people that you always laugh the hardest with? Like, you know, if you're going to see these 5 people, you are going to have the kind of laughter where like your head hurts, you're laughing so hard. Or what about the 5 people who had the biggest impact on your life? 5 favorite memories with your siblings. Or if you don't have siblings, 5 of your favorite memories with your parents. Here's another great thing to think about. Think about the 5 people you used to spend a ton of time with, but you don't see them anymore. But you really do miss them. You know what's interesting about all those questions I just asked you? I bet you can answer all of them. You can give me 5 specific names or 5 specific memories for every one of those questions. Why? Well, because of how those people made you feel. And that brings me to today's topic. So I mentioned this research study. The research study I want to talk to you about is called the American Time Use Survey. And it's this big study where researchers collected data for over 10 years. And here's what they were looking for. They were looking at how social connections evolve through the average person's lifetime. And I'm sure you've heard that saying, it's all over the internet, that you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And there's no doubt that having healthy relationships with other people and with yourself is one of the single most important pillars of a great life. Now, what we're going to look at today is what the research found over 10 years about who you spend time with over the course of your lifetime and how that changes over the course of your lifetime. Now, one giant caveat is that they only looked at data over 10 years with Americans. And regardless of where you're listening, though, or whatever your cultural background might be, I guarantee you there is something that you will learn in this data that will make you approach your relationships differently. It will make you look at friendship, your relationship with your parents or your siblings, where you're working, your relationship with your kids, with your partner, with yourself in a very different way. I know it did for me. And so here's my intention with our conversation today. My intention is to wake you up to the reality of how time is passing you by and how much of your time you're probably spending on things that are not important to you. And so here's how the conversation is going to go today. I'm going to walk you through the 6 key takeaways. And if you want to see the data and the charts, which I think you would find them very compelling, all you got to do is go to my social media, Mel Robbins, that's the handle on all the accounts, or go down to the resources, which we have for every show, and we will link to the posts because I want you to see the graphs with your own eyes because they are so compelling. And I got them right here in my hand, okay? And when you see the reality, and that's what I want to hammer into your head and my head, the reality of how time is impacting your relationships with your parents, your siblings, your partner, your friends, your kids, and your coworkers. This is not a fantasy. This is the reality of your life. And I want you to be more intentional from this point forward about how you spend your time, who you spend your time with. That's what this is about. To align your life with choices that match the reality of how fast time is going by. And look, everything that's already happened, that's in the rearview mirror. We cannot change the past. We know that. But you can learn from it, and you can learn from this data, and you can take from this moment and look forward, and you can use the data you're about to learn to change your life for the better. So let's go through these 6 crazy statistics on who you spend your time with over the course of your life. And the first one is about family. So let's talk about your family. I mean, everybody loves to complain about their family, don't we? In fact, as I record this right now, I'm in a bit of a little tiff with one of our kids. They haven't talked to me in 48 hours. And so I'm not immune to the kind of challenges that can come in family relationships, but this little tiff will pass. And I noticed that anytime I post something online about narcissism or toxic behavior, you guys go crazy over those kind of posts. Yeah, cut them out of my life. Yeah, narcissists. But today, I want to talk about the reality. And the reality is your time with your family is limited. And I'm talking about both your parents and your siblings. Your time is limited. And I'm going to break this down for you because I don't think we stop and think about this in terms of the data. We think about it in terms of kind of generally how your life feels. But let me just explain what happens for the average person. From 0 to 18, those are the years that you will spend the most amount of time that you have with your parents and your siblings. And sometimes that time can feel like a prison. But the truth is, when you zoom out and you really look at the data, it's very sobering. Here it is. When you turn 18, the amount of time that you spend with siblings and parents, it basically drops off a cliff. And you know this. And it keeps dropping until you reach about age 26. And when you reach age 26, based on the data, you are now at a flat line for the rest of your life. That whatever time you're spending on a daily basis with your family, meaning your parents and your siblings, that's it. And if you're lucky, it tops out at less than an hour a day. Now, for those of you that are part of a big family farm or you have a big family business or you're a family where you have a multi-generational house, which I think is super cool, you see your family a little bit more than average. But I want you to stop and think about this. You never see your family, do you? I mean, we lived a mile from Chris's oldest brother as we were raising our kids outside of Boston. We never saw them. And Chris and I, we would talk about it all the time. Why don't we hang out with your brother more? It's almost like because they're family, you sort of put them in the box of just defaulting to see them over the holidays, right? And here's another example. My mother-in-law, she lives 3 miles from me. Now, she's 86 and her social calendar is busier than mine, plus I work full time. I'm lucky when she's here in Vermont if I see her once every 2 weeks. Why? I don't know. I guess I don't really prioritize it. It's not that I don't like her. I just don't really think about it. And let me just take a giant highlighter and really put this in perspective about how fleeting your time is with your parents and your siblings. My dad, Bob, he is turning 80 this year. His father was dead by the age of 81. Chris's dad died at the age of 69 from esophageal cancer. So let's just say I'm lucky and my dad lives another 10 years. Now, my dad and mom, they live in Michigan. So I only see my dad 3 or 4 times a year. So let's put that in the context of how much time I have with him. If he lives 10 years, that's 30 more weekends with my dad. When you do the math that way, doesn't it make you think differently about it? Like take my sibling, my brother, he lives in Chicago. And Derek's got 2 twin boys who are freshmen in high school. And his public high school schedule and our public high school schedule, they are not on the same breaks ever. And so it's not like we can go on spring break together. Plus his kids are in competitive sports all summer long. Our son's going to go to college next year. When are we going to see each other? And this isn't a statistic where I'm trying to guilt you. This is the facts. And I don't know what kind of relationship you have with your parents or with your siblings. So I want to ask you this question in the context of this statistic, especially as your parents are getting older. If you think about this moment and you look forward and you think about the limited amount of time that you have, what kind of daughter or son do you want to be from this moment moving on? What kind of a brother or sister do you want to be from this moment moving forward? And look, maybe you've been listening to the experts that we've had on narcissism and difficult people, and you're like, that's it, I'm cutting them out. But for most of us, when you really stop and think about the reality, that time is slipping through your hands, and this person is the way that they are, and they are the way that they are because of their upbringing, their past experiences, and their unhealed trauma, and there's nothing you're going to do to change it. But who do you want to be? And I want you to really think about this. This is why I call my parents 3 times a week. I just do it to check in because of who I want to be. And I find personally that the more that I check in, the better our relationship is, the more that they soften, the warmer that they are. And I realize why. It's because when I call, they don't feel forgotten. And it does make me incredibly sad to think that I might only spend 30 more weekends with my dad. And look, I need to say my mom and dad, but my dad's older, so he's the one that's top of mind. And my mom just turned 75. She's still kicking. So Mom, I need to see you too in case you're listening. And as I'm sitting here, I can't help but think, and I bet you're starting to think this too, maybe I should find a weekend in the next month to go down and see them. I mean, you just never know, right? Even though I saw them a couple weeks ago, maybe I should make another plan. And I think that's a big takeaway. First of all, your time is limited. Do the math and think about how little time you actually have. And the second big takeaway is always have the next plan for when you're going to see them next. That helps me a ton to know that I've got something in the books, we have something to look forward to, and that I'm checking in just because that's the kind of person that I want to be. And it's important that you think about this. Because enjoying your relationships is not just about savoring them and being grateful that you have the time to have with them. Because and I don't mean to be making fun of being grateful, but it can become very surface level. My message today is look at the data, look at the reality. And if you value this, your parents and your siblings, wake the hell up and start prioritizing it. And that's what I've been doing. In fact, over the holidays, we went on 2 back-to-back grandparent trips. I don't know if you've done any of those, but when the big milestone birthday happens, it's pretty awesome. Chris's mom turned 85, and so she brought together her 3 sons and all the kids, which meant 9 cousins, 6 adults, and Judy and her partner on 2 sailboats. It was super awesome. And here's what I realized as we were all together. Do you know the last time that all 18 of us got together? It was 10 years ago. And I bet that's true with your family too, because the older you get, the harder it is to get everybody together. Like if I think about my family on Chris's side, 9 cousins, they're all over the place. We've got cousins in Texas and Colorado and New York City and some in college and some graduated and they're living their lives. It's the reality. And it's difficult to get that many people together. And so I'm proud that we did that for Chris's mom for her 85th. And by the way, right after that, we went and spent the weekend with my entire family to celebrate my mom's 75th. And if you've ever been at a big gathering like that, a milestone birthday for a parent or a grandparent where everybody's there, I'm willing to bet it's one of the happiest times you'll ever see them because it's insanely difficult to get everyone together once people turn 18. And that is what this data is saying. Your time with your family is incredibly scarce once you turn 18. Take it seriously. My intention is to wake you up to the reality of how time is passing you by and how much of your time you're probably spending on things that are not important to you.